Hello, fellow students. Today, on our discussion on denominational diversity, I'm going to be talking about Methodism and Methodists. This is a denomination different than my own, which is Presbyterian. And according to the course guidelines, I want to be open and honest and objective in the research, which we'll seek to do here today with this presentation. So first, I want to just say that Methodists were late to the game a little bit when coming to the colonies as a group. Came in about 1775, and by this time it was a lot going on with the war, of course, starting soon. And Methodists themselves were known as loyalists, especially with the Wesleys had this point of view. So they had a little trouble, but did start to grow after. Um, it did become eventually one of the largest denominations in the country and real important for the country. It was big into the awakening times, of course, before the 1750s with George Whitefield preaching as a Methodist, even though he wasn't grouping churches or anything like that. Leaders would be big into awakening. John Wesley would gather excerpts of Jonathan Edwards' book of distinguishing marks of a work of God, and that was important for the movement. Francis Asbury would help grow the movement. He preached 16,000 sermons across America. Of course, one of the elements of Methodism was the circuit riding preachers and the movement of the ministers throughout the country to preach. They had a structure that helped them grow as a movement. It was hierarchical in its nature, and this Episcopal structure helped them be organized more and helped grow the movement, which did help it to grow. In 1766, the first meeting was held in New York City, and this was groundbreaking and would continue the structure and the growth of the movement. Going towards more of the Second Great Awakening, the camp meeting would be a big emphasis. They would domesticate the camp meeting. It would be an element of their denomination that would be very important moving forward. They would have camp meetings in the East. They would also be important for African American religion. The A few names to think of: William Capers was one who would be big into religious instruction for African Americans and slaves. Richard Allen would break away from the Methodist Church and start the African Episcopal Methodist Communion in 1815, and this would grow to have over 300 churches very early on by the middle of the century. And important during the Second Great Awakening, evangelist and revivalist Lorenzo Dow would be an important Methodist, and what's known about him is the jerking exercises that accompanied his preaching. After the Civil War, Methodists wouldn't have any problem joining with pastors such as, or preachers and evangelists such as Dwight L. Moody. We read about his 1877 revival in Boston, Massachusetts. Would have no problem in using methods or means to work up revivals and help the situation along. So that gets us through kind of the Second Great Awakening after the Civil War. I really appreciate you listening and um, learning about this presentation with how Methodists were important to the culture and how it affected and impacted culture from their earliest days until this time period after the Civil War. Thank you.